This is GamesAtWork.biz, your weekly podcast about gaming, technology, and play. Your hosts are Michael Martin, Andy Piper, and Michael Rowe. The thoughts and opinions on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests alone and are not the opinions of any organization which they have been, are, or may be affiliated with. This is episode 559. Welcome to the Matrix. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Michael Rowe here. Back again after a 2-week hiatus, where I spent so much time goofing off, doing absolutely fun things.
Getting sick.
Actually, WWDC was fun, and then being sick, so...
Fun times.
But I'm here with my good friend Andy Piper. We're going to have a very special episode this week because we ain't doing no show notes. We ain't doing no show run. We're just going to talk.
What we mean is that
catch up.
All the stories we've been tracking this week have been so depressing in relation to AI and surveillance and how the open internet has gone bad on us in different ways.
Yes.
Unless we resist it, which we must do. That we don't want to talk about them. So instead, we just thought we'd catch up, and we've already spent
half an hour
behind the scenes of our show. This is how it works. For those of you that don't know, we have a group chat. We share a bunch of links through the week. Thursday night or Friday morning, we throw them all into a shared document. We categorize them all up. We spend half an hour kind of just like chatting it through. Then we spend half an hour-ish recording, and then we're done. This time, Michael and I have spent 40 minutes just chatting about life and thinking all of these links suck. So we wanted to just, have a kind of an off-brand show this week. And, we've done it before. We did that sort of deep dive into AT Proto a couple of months back. There was kind of a little bit less of a regular show, I guess. And,
Yeah. And I have one link I do want to talk about ever so briefly, and that's the Kickstarter that I'm backing, just because, the guys over at the Upgrade podcast, and Six Colors, so Jason Snell and Mike Hurley, they have kicked off a Kickstarter. It ends this month, at the end of this month, to do a 50-episode deep dive podcast into the history of Apple. And it's not just a rehash of all the books or movies you may have seen, but it's told from the perspective of research that Jason did over the last 50 years growing up an Apple person. And a lot of behind the scenes from Macworld and Mac User and other stuff. And it's fun. I've enjoyed the 4 free episodes that they did to kind of get people enticed during the Kickstarter. I backed it. And if you don't want to pay for it, you can still catch it. It will come out as a free podcast too.
Oh, that's neat. I'm on Kickstarter now looking for it, and it's not on my front page. So.
Designed in California is the name of the show. Designed in California, an Apple history podcast. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
It's not. Let's just quickly riff off of that because... Well, one thing I mentioned last week, as I was talking to Michael Martin, was that I was going to go to the Retro Computer Museum here in the UK because they had an event on last weekend, and I'd never been there. So we drove up to Leicester in the UK on Saturday last week, and I did take some photos. I haven't posted them on socials yet. It's a really cool location. They have it's pretty small, but they've got a room where you can go and try out and play with some of the older sort of 1980s, 90s computers. They've got another room which is more of set up as an arcade, which includes some of the original virtuality machines. The little pods.
Oh, cool.
Now, the problem with that was that they had a flood last year, and those pods, they sit on the ground, so they actually suffered some damage, so they're having to be restored and repaired right now. But the upper floor there is a proper library, multiple shelf racks, where they actually collect and people can donate magazines, books, and software from that era. Lots and lots of stuff on cassette and on floppy disk of different formats, in alphabetical order in terms of like the computer systems that they have represented. I was really excited to go. They are charity. They have almost no resources. So unfortunately, a lot of the stuff isn't getting to places like the Internet Archive. But I was talking to my wife about it and thinking, probably if there's some software from that period of time that you wanted, or they may well have it, because they really did have an incredible selection there of stuff that I haven't seen in many cases for an incredibly long time. So and talking about, as we just have done, the 50-year history of Apple, it brought it back.
As you were going through that, I was actually thinking about the box I have up behind my head, which you can't see on an audio podcast, with 5 1/4-inch floppies.
You can't even see it on a video where Mike was using like a green screen, or a fake background. So all I can see is like a night sky behind him.
Just pointing up in the night sky. But I also have a 1/2-inch tape of a bunch of programs I wrote back in my days when I was working on AS400s.
Wow.
I love history museums, and electronic and computer history museums I think are always really cool, because I was talking to my dad about a year ago about how I felt really lucky that I grew up at the right time to see the history of computing effectively, right? Starting with my first computer with 2K, and now my watch, which has 64 gigs.
This actually leads in really nicely to the other thing that I think you wanted to talk a lot about, which is what I'm doing now. Because
Yes.
I brought up the same topic.
I was so excited
on a video that I recorded earlier today, where I was being asked about things that are important to me and what I want people to know. And I said, look, I've lived through, as you have, the analog to digital period, and we grew up learning how to navigate an analog information world with books in libraries and so on, and still incredible scientific breakthroughs happening as we were youngsters, and moon missions and space missions, and now everything's available in theory in an instant at your fingertips, except we've got these regressive situations around the world that is actually trying to pull back on our ability to access that information freely, respectfully, and use it in positive ways. So, that actually ties in quite nicely to that.
What are you doing now? Because I'm really excited. I saw the toot earlier this week, and I was like, Andy, awesome, great news. What are you doing?
So I've got a 6-month contract initially with the Matrix Foundation, for Matrix.org Foundation. Matrix.org is where you will find it. And for those of you that are not familiar with what Matrix is, it is not. It, of course, is a tumbling.
It's a movie, right?
Tumbling pile of green code in the background as I speak. But it is a real-time communications protocol. It is open source. It is secure. It is end-to-end encrypted, etc. The easiest way, there are a few ways to think about it. One way is to say it's like, if you're from our era, it's like IRC but better. It's an alternative kind of chat room concept to IRC. From the modern era, you may think of it as an open source version of Slack or Discord. The key thing about it is that it is decentralized and federated, and these are words that are boring to most ordinary folks when it comes to tech and most things. They just want something that works. But it's important because it means that you can run your own, what we call home server, or you can join the main ones that exist. You don't have to join them. Once you've got an identity on the Matrix network, you can join any other Matrix room, and that will federate with your home server. So it's extremely cool. It's an open source project. It's been running for over 10 years. It's had quite a lot of success, particularly in Europe. But the team is primarily based in the UK that I'm working with, but it's, as usual, with these kinds of projects, international. And I'm going to be doing developer relations and community and helping to organize some of their events. So yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited for you, and I know one of the things we were discussing is, I mean, most of our back end that we work on for our show tends to be on the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah.
You could consider it very closed, and it has caused us problems in the past in certain areas. It can be frustrating at time. When it works, but it doesn't just work lately. Matter of fact, the more we play with it, the more it just doesn't just work.
Well, I think we found, quite honestly, so I've migrated increasingly away from the Apple ecosystem. I still use an iPhone. In fact, I went to a Linux-based meetup this week and somebody said, what are you doing here with your iPhone and your Apple Watch? And I was like, well, yeah, okay, but that's pretty much the area where I'm still deeply wedded. I'm recording this with you now on my MacBook Pro, and I'm fortunate enough to have other machines. I know, as I've spoken about on the show before, I run Linux in many places. But so that's been one thing that's been a point of friction, because I typically need to check in on my phone to look at iMessage to share links with you both. The other point of friction has been different versions where one or other of us has been restricted for some reason. Let's say it's a corporate policy that you can't be on the most recent version of all of the iDevice operating systems, and then there's some feature that doesn't work well between them. So I think that we all want, that we've been doing this for coming on for 20 years, right? And we've had a very similar process across that time. We've always looked for listener links, but earlier on we solicited them much more heavily, and we're still excited to receive links to content that listeners would like us to talk about and think might be interesting to us. But generally speaking, we're finding and sharing things together across the week, and we come to the end of the week and then we have to do a manual process of kind of cleaning it all up and figuring out what our show looks like. And that's fun, but it would be really neat if there was more automation available. And I'm not talking about AI necessarily.
No.
My new role...
Just automation.
My new role has a process where we do a weekly blog post which contains updates from across the community. And most of that is managed through a chat room where there is a bot, not an AI bot, just a regular style, programmed bot, automated bot that understands some commands and then spits out at the end of the day a well marked up markdown file, well formatted file that becomes the core of the blog post. So you can't, you can't easily do that on Apple right now, frankly. I mean, you can't. I mean, there's no ability to do that with iMessage. And I think that I don't see it even coming with the Siri 2.0 and all the other funky stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, I've done a lot over the last year with the AI side of that, not for our in the day job. And it's funny. I was having a discussion with somebody the other day about how I love reading Markdown files. They're just so legible to me. And but then again, and he's like, oh, it's just impossible to read. I'm like, no, I like them. And here's why. And I started thinking about it because I'm like, I used to like reading just plain HTML because I could read it. I understood the markdown that it was using. And it goes back to, as an undergrad, my first professional-ish resume, I wrote in Waterloo script, which was a markdown language on the IBM 3081.
Okay, I was going to say that was a new one on me, so...
Yeah, which was, it was dot based, right? So like dot B would start a bold, right?
I know,
and it was, and even before that, WordPerfect.
WordPerfect. That was exactly the thing I was about to make.
Reveal codes. Yeah. You would go to reveal codes and you could debug a badly formatted document because you would see all the markdown. So basically, we haven't really changed what we're doing with text editing in, let's call it, 30 plus years. We've just changed the markdown and hid it a little bit better. And now we're going back to exposing it with markdown.
Right, and so there's this new Google proposal to essentially write everything in Markdown so that the AIs can read it more easily, right? It's I'm trying to find the specific proposal that's come along in the last month or so. It's not MCP. MCP's been around for 2 years now. But there was some proposal that Google made around how to format everything, and I'm looking for the new is it Google AI standard? Let's see if that gets me there.
You should Google that.
I'm doing it exactly right now and trying to find it. And not getting the answer I want. Standard for API documentation, something like that. Still not finding it.
So I'm going to use my non-Google search engine, the Document AI Documentation Cloud Documentation Code Lab, Generative AI Cloud Documentation, AI Principles Doc. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not very successful.
Google AI.
I'm not clicking on any of those.
Standard Mark. Let's try Markdown. It makes a fascinating listening, doesn't it? Open knowledge format. That's it. Google Cloud's open knowledge format is what it's called.
Which is Markdown, right?
Which is essentially Markdown, the core standard for AI communication.
You mean it'll be Markdown with a few additional extensions that make it unique to that standard?
It's got YAML at the front, so making it disgusting and ugly straight away. Well, it's not disgusting and ugly because I use that all the time for doing things like Hugo.
Yeah, YAML's easy to read too.
Hugo blogs and Zola blogs are all in the same format. You get this front matter, which is YAML almost always, and then you get Markdown, and it then gets generated into HTML, which is how the browser knows to show pretty looking text to you. But it is interesting that we spent a lot of time building and evolving HTML, and then, of course, increasingly adding interactivity and more desktop usability concepts to it. And then we decided that text with a little bit of a few hashes in there to indicate what a header is the best format to describe everything.
Yeah. So, yes, and so I did have something fun coming up. We talked about, I think it was last year about this time, that the Demio team had come out with a new version of their game that was aligned with Dungeons and Dragons.
We did.
And I'm going to order it today, finally. A year late. But I'm really looking forward to spending some time next week playing that game. I'm going to take some time off and actually not do work stuff and not do other stuff and play that game because I'm really looking forward. I enjoyed Demio. That was fun.
Well, I'd love to try that out. I haven't put my Meta headset on for probably 6 months, which means there'll be another load of heavy updates to do on it when I do. And I would still love to try that game with you and Ian or whoever else. But one game that I've become quite attached to, as I talked about last week and the week before, is Forza Horizon 6. I've been really enjoying buzzing around Japan, discovering all the skill boards and trying to win races. I've managed to acquire my DeLorean this week. It's the weekly Retro Decades Challenge. So one of the challenges there was to win specific series of races and get a DeLorean, then drive the DeLorean and get more points for driving the DeLorean and taking photos of the DeLorean. So, which of course, as we know, is famously a terrible vehicle.
Yes. Matter of fact, in high school there was one in the town that I lived in.
Huh.
So there was actually an actual DeLorean. I remember seeing it at the mall, and I remember seeing the problems with it.
Right.
Because the stainless steel or whatever it was casing would rust.
I mean,
I get discoloration or whatever it was.
I can't think of any vehicles in the modern era that you might remind you of that.
In that same crappy, in that same crappy manner. But so I'm looking forward to playing some games, which I haven't really had time to do lately. And I'm excited to see. I really do think from a podcast perspective, what you're doing with the Matrix.org would be something cool to test out if we could do some enhancements to our back-end processes. And I do have a little home lab running, and maybe I'll throw up an instance on my environment and see what problems that causes me.
So there's a good open source home server for Matrix that I've been using called Continuity, which is relatively self-contained. The canonical home server is something called Synapse, which is quite a bit bigger, more enterprise oriented, and it's got way more features and so on. But continuity seems to work for me. I got it up and running on Proxmox fairly easily. As a result, I now have 2 identities on Matrix. Where does that remind you of? I don't need to have. I did that because I wanted this home server, and I federated in some rooms, some channels from other servers that I participate with. So Matrix is used very widely. So the GNOME Foundation, the Linux desktop folks use it. Electromagnetic Field, the camping festival that I'm going to soon, use it. Bridged with IRC, because Matrix has got a lot of bridge components that you can add into your home server, and many other places that I'm using Matrix, and I have been using Matrix for quite a while. Regardless, in fact, I'm just a part of too many communities on both Discord, Slack. I'm also part of communities of, but I don't tend to open the Slack app anymore. Matrix. And then, of course, those are the real-time chat type communities. And there's all the forum communities that are typically on Discourse or NodeBB or something. So there's a lot of places to hang out online. Going back to what I said earlier, I think I'm a little concerned by the ways in which some of those are becoming restricted by things like age verification and other challenges to our ability to interact online freely.
It reminds me again of the early days of the internet, where you would define what we called a homepage. And I want a homepage for my communities, right? So I go to one place and I can communicate to all the different places. I don't want to load Slack and Discord and, an RSS reader and a website to get into their forums and right? I'm tired of that. It's
RSS
it's tool overload.
RSS has been a remarkably enduring piece of technology, right? So Mastodon, any Mastodon user has RSS feed.
If I could feed those all into one homepage on my computer, so my work is in one place that I manage.
So I do that with my home lab using some software called Glance. It doesn't give me exactly what you just described, but on my Glance page on my home lab, I have a tab with access to all my services. I have a tab which shows me the status of all my services. So it's more like your status monitoring. So it uses something called Uptime Kuma, which is also, by the way, what the status page for the website for the Games at Work website now uses. So status.gamesatwork.biz is running on my home lab and it's just monitoring all of our different parts of our infrastructure. The website, which is our blog, which is our podcast source, plus our Mastodon feed and so on. So that all runs on Uptime Kuma. I can see the weather on there. I can see my clock on there. So you got your widgets if you want. I've got some of my RSS feeds from different tech news websites. Got Hacker News and Lobsters, the sort of the trending news store sites on there as well. So I can just see that what's new.
I've pared mine down to a couple of different things, right? I've got NetNewsWire for all my RSS feeds, and it allows me to do a lot of stuff fairly easily, and it syncs across my devices. So I have one, no matter which device I get it on, it's current, right? For more commercial stuff, I'm using the Apple News app because I in the ecosystem. But then for a couple other things, I have to kick out to Slack and I have to kick out to Discord because that's where those communities are. And then the rest is all different combinations of websites, which just gets annoying. So, yeah, we should do a deep dive one time on setting all this up. And by we, I mean I need to do a deep dive to set my stuff up better.
I'm constantly thinking of extra services I need to add to my setup, and then just not having the time or energy to do it. And that will be a bit more limited now that I'm back into a full-time role for the next 6 months. But that's fine. That's good. That's and I still get to go to Electromagnetic Field here in the UK in 2 weeks' time. So I'll be skipping a recording and hanging out in a field and with a bunch of other nerds and doing things like pen plotting and whatever else I can fit in, really. So,
well, that sounds like a blast, and hopefully our listeners this week enjoyed a blast of something totally different.
Yeah.
If you did, thank you. Let us know. We'd appreciate it. Rate our podcast, pop us a note over on Mastodon, or go to the website at gamesatwork.biz. We'd love to hear from you. Comment on the episode. You can comment on any show note, any episode that's on there. Other than that, would love to hear from you on things you'd like to hear us talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Or anything else.
Something a bit more positive than all the things that we were looking at before we started that we didn't want to talk about.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, no, we always love to hear from you folks. Thanks for sticking with us. Hope you've enjoyed a slightly different conversation this week. Thanks for your support as always, and we will see ya.
Bye. You've been listening to GamesAtWork.biz, the podcast about gaming, technology, and play. We are part of the Blueberry Podcasting Network, and would like to thank the band Random Encounters for their song, Big Blue. You can follow us at our website at GamesAtWork.biz.